I've been thinking a lot lately about a stretch of time in my early 30s where it felt like one by one, a good number of my friends just changed on me. Same guys I'd known for 15 years, but they started having kids, started settling down. And within a few months, some of them, there was this clear difference in their energy, almost an aura around them. It was the dad upgrade moment. The way he'd hold his undivided attention towards protecting his wife and his kids. He was seeking out every opportunity possible any way he could to better serve them, whatever was within his power. And I thought that was so incredibly beautiful, so father-like, right? It changed the way they talked, what they cared about. They really got it together. They brought themselves up to a higher standard in a shockingly short amount of time. And I remember sitting with that, feeling something I couldn't really pinpoint. I couldn't have described exactly what that was. It wasn't jealousy exactly. It was more like they stepped outside a fence I didn't even know I was standing behind. Because here's what I couldn't see back then. I thought I was looking at the whole picture of my life. I really did. But I had no idea there was anything on the other side of that fence. And think about it, you can't go looking for something when you don't even know it exists. There's no motivation to. So I wasn't broken, and I want to say that clearly because you might be standing in the same yard I was. You're not broken. You're just running at low resolution, and nobody ever told you there was a higher one. Let me show you what low resolution actually looks like on a day to day basis. You come home after work, and within about 90 seconds, you snap at someone you love. That's all it takes 90 seconds. Over something that doesn't even really matter. Maybe they left their shoes out on the carpet, or the garage door got left open again, or they just ask you a simple question and somehow it sets you off. And somewhere in there, you know you're doing it again and you hate it. But part of you is standing off to the side going, why did I just do that? That was too much. Well, here's another one. Somebody gives you a compliment, a genuine, real compliment. They truly meant it, and it just slides right off of you. You cannot hold on to it. 10 seconds later, it's like it never happened. But that one criticism from a few weeks back, oh, that one you kept. That one, you can still replay word for word. You don't even question how weird that is. That the bad stuff sticks and the good stuff just won't. Or somebody just asks you, hey, how are you doing? And you say, oh, I'm fine. Well, here's the thing. You're not lying. You just genuinely don't know. You reach inside of you for this specific word that could describe how you're exactly feeling right then and there, but there just isn't one there. I lived right here for years. I was so cut off from my emotional side of me that a few friends of mine literally called me a caveman. And honestly, they weren't exaggerating. Something would be going on inside of me, and I just could not get it from in here, my chest, to out here in my mouth. Imagine if there's a wire connecting the two and the wire got cut off somewhere. Or maybe this one. You already know the thing you need to do. You've known for a month. A doctor told you about certain thing you need to pay attention to. And you nodded in agreement. You genuinely agreed. And you meant it right there in the doctor's office. And then afterwards, there's no follow-up, nothing. Weeks go by and nothing changes. And it's not that you're lazy, you're not. You're not lazy. That's the confusing part. You genuinely cannot figure out why you won't move on the one thing that even you agreed is important. And here's one that slips past almost everybody. It's quiet enough that you can go years without ever catching it. All day at work, you're on point. You're sharp, you're patient, you're kind and warm with the people who, let's be honest, didn't really earn your best. And then you arrive home after work and your tank's empty. You go kind of vacant. And the people who get what's left over are the ones who are supposed to matter the most. 5 different places it shows up. But it's one thing that's causing all of it. And if even one of those made you go, oof, that's me, then I need to tell you the thing nobody told me for the first 30 years of my life. You are not broken. Here's what almost everybody does with a list like that. They go through all those five, and somewhere in there they come to this one conclusion. Okay, something's wrong with me. Something's broken in here that other people just don't have. And that right there, that's the lie. That's the one I want to pull out by the root right now before we go one more step. Because you are not broken. Broken means a part of you is missing or damaged. Something that's got to be fixed or swapped out before the thing works right again. That's not what's going on here, not even close. Everything you need, it's already in there. Those five capabilities I just walked you through, you've got them all, fully, right now, today. So the problem was never that the picture's missing. The picture's all there, it's just blurry. Like a photo that came out a little out of focus. Everything is in the frame, every detail, all of it sitting right there. You just can't quite make it out yet. So you don't sit there going, well, this picture is broken. Instead, you try and recalibrate the lens to bring it into focus, right? And that's all resolution is. It's just how clearly you can see what's already sitting there. Low resolution, everything's a blur. You're guessing, you're reacting. You're calling that 90-second snap just being tired because honestly, that's the best you can make out from where you're standing back then. Bring the resolution up and the same picture comes into the focus. Same life, same you. So you can just finally see it clearly enough to actually do something about it now. And I wish somebody had said this to me a lot sooner. For most of us, nobody ever told us that the lens could be adjusted at all. So the question was never what's wrong with me. The real question, the one worth asking is, why is the picture blurry in the first place? What's actually holding it out of focus? That's what I want to show you next. So let's go get that answer. And the first thing I've got to tell you is what it is not. It was never your intelligence. Some of the smartest people I've ever known are running at the lowest resolution of anybody in the room. It was never your discipline, it was never your willpower, never how hard you're willing to try. You could have all of them maxed out and still be standing there squinting at a blurry picture because none of that is the lens. Clarity and the effort are just two completely different things. So where does it come from? Back in the 80s, a psychologist named E. Torrey Higgins was studying something he called self-discrepancy. And what he found was that every single one of us is walking around with more than one version of ourselves in our head. There's the you that you actually are on a day-to-day basis, and then there's the you that you believe you should be. It's the one you'd be if you are showing up the way you know deep down you're capable of. And Higgins found that the distance between those two isn't just some abstract idea. It has a real, measurable weight on you. The wider the gap gets, the more it costs. So in plain language, that ache you feel when you snap at someone you love and then stand there going, man, that's not who I want to be. That ache has a name now. That's the gap, and it's real. And here's what makes that gap so sneaky. You think that you could just look inside and see it clearly, right? But you can't. Remember Timothy Wilson from the episode on why compliments bounce right off you? We're strangers to ourselves. So we're just not built to see our own insides clearly from the inside. The one thing you most need to get a good look at is the thing you've got the worst view of. So let me give you a way to actually see this one. You know how video works, right? An old clip from way back, let's say, it's in 240p. It's grainy, it's blocky, and you can kind of tell what you're looking at, but you're filling in half of it with a guess. Now, bump it up. Let's go 480p, 720p. It sharpens. Now, 1080p. And now you're catching detail you didn't even know was in there. And then now 4K. Now, wow, every pore, every blade of grass you see, right? It's same footage the whole time. It's same scene, right? The only thing that changed was the resolution. And that's you. That's your emotional life. That's your relationship. The way you read a room, the way you read your own self, right? Most of us are running the whole thing at 240p and calling it reality. Not because anything's broken in us, because nobody ever showed us the picture could get sharper than this. So, if the whole thing comes down to resolution, then the real question becomes what actually decides how sharp your picture is. And this is the part I've never laid out for anybody all in one place, so stay with me here. There are three layers to it. Three. The first layer is your capacity. And there are five elements to this. Think of these as what. So, for example, what you are able to build, how deeply you can see yourself, how clearly you can name what you're feeling, whether the person you say you are actually matches the person you're being, how you show up for the people closest to you, and whether you follow through on the things you already decided matter. Five capabilities. That's the what. The second layer is the forces. There are four of them, and the forces are the answers to why your resolution is low in the first place. Why is the picture blurry? It's not random. Four specific forces are pushing it out of focus, and most of them got installed in you before you were ever old enough to agree to any of it. And then there's a third layer, and this one is the reason it doesn't just go blurry in one spot. It's the reason that on your worst days, all five seems to drop at once. Like someone reached over and dropped the resolution on the entire screen. There's a single thing sitting underneath all five that can pull them all down together. I'll show you what it is a little later. And when you see it, a whole lot of your hardest days are gonna suddenly make sense. Five capacities, four forces, and the one thing underneath. That is the entire map. So let's actually go through them one at a time, and I'll show you the force pushing on each one as we go. First capacity is called awareness depth. This is your ability to see not just what you're doing, but why you're doing it. So with low awareness depth, you stop at the first answer. I snapped because I was tired. I ate because I was hungry. Case closed. And that answer's true enough that it stops you from ever looking underneath it. With high awareness depth, you ask one more question. Why did a tired version of me reach for that specifically? And you stay with it long enough for a real answer to show up. So, what pushes this one down? The first force is called the inherited narrative. It's the story about yourself that got handed to you so early, you don't even feel it as a story anymore. You feel it as just the truth. And that story stops you at the surface every single time because looking deeper would mean questioning something you never knew you agreed to. It feels like your own conclusion. It almost never was. Somebody handed it to you. Now watch how they connect, because if you can't see beneath your own behavior, you're gonna struggle with the second one too. It's called emotional clarity. The ability to name what you're actually feeling. Not the blanket word, the specific thing underneath it. Low emotional clarity, you've got about 6 words for your whole inner life. Stress, tired, fine. Right? Somebody asks you how you're doing and you say fine. Not because you're hiding anything, but because fine is honestly the sharpest word you've got. 2 forces push on this one. First is vocabulary poverty. Nobody ever taught you the words. A researcher named Todd Kashdan found that people who can name their feelings in fine detail, he calls it emotional granularity, actually handle those feelings better. Not because they feel less, because they can see more precisely what's there so they know what to do with it. You can't work with a feeling you can only call fine. The second force is heavier, unprocessed emotion. Basil van der Kolk spent his whole career here, and what he found is that emotions we never fully felt don't just evaporate, they get stored. They sit in the body and wait. So sometimes the reason you can't name what you're feeling is that it isn't even from today. It's an old thing that never got finished, humming underneath a random Tuesday. We already went deep on how your brain actually builds an emotion in earlier episodes, so I won't reopen all that here. Just know this: when you can't name it, that isn't you failing. It's a force nobody ever handed you the tools to beat. Now, watch this. Third capacity, identity alignment. Whether the person you say you are actually matches the person your behavior shows you to be. And here's what I want you to catch: the force pushing on this one is the same one from the very first capacity, the inherited narrative. Back again. That's the part almost nobody tells you, that these forces don't stay in their lane. One single inherited story can blur your awareness and scramble your identity at the same time in two totally different parts of your life, and you never connect the two. Here's how it works on identity. Peter Fonagy, building on the attachment work we got into with Bowlby, found that we don't actually develop a steady sense of who we are on our own. We build it from being accurately seen by the people who raised us. So get reflected back clearly, you grow up able to hold a clear picture of yourself. Don't, and you're left running on whatever story was lying around, accurate or not. And then it locks in. William Swan, back in the compliments episode, showed us we go looking for information that confirms a story we already carry. So if the inherited story says you are not quite enough, a compliment cannot get in. Doesn't match the file. But a criticism slides right in and gets underlined. You're not broken for that. You're just running a self-image that got built before you had any say in it. And that defended story about yourself doesn't just stay in your head. It shows up in how you treat the people closest to you. That's the fourth capacity, relational integrity. Whether you show up for them as the same person you believe yourself to be. Low relational integrity isn't about not loving people. It's the gap between I'd do anything for you and I can't have the 10-minute conversation that's been sitting between us for over a month. Strangers get your patience. The people you love most get your leftovers. The force here is scarcity programming. Somewhere you learn that there is not enough. Not enough time, not enough of you to go around, not enough safety to drop your guard. So you ration. You hand the people closest to you your most defended version because lowering the guard feels like a risk you can't afford. Carol Dweck's work fits right in. She found that when someone's operating from a fixed, threatened place, feedback stops feeling like information and starts feeling like an attack. So your partner says you've been distant. And instead of hearing someone who misses you, your nervous system hears an accusation and you defend. And notice, that's the same fixed story from the identity piece we just did, showing up now in a fight with someone you love. Same root, different part of your life entirely. We looked at the comparison engine behind a lot of this back in the Envy episode with Tesser and Watkins. So you've already met part of this machinery. When relational integrity runs low, it's rarely that you don't care. Scarcity just taught you to protect yourself before being known, and that can be unlearned. Now, the fifth capacity, and this one is different from the other four, and I need you to really hear why. Behavioral follow-through. Whether you actually do the things you already decided matter. You said you'd have the conversation. You were warned by the doctor. You agreed, you meant every word of it, and then nothing changed. And here's what the whole world tells you what that means. You lack discipline. You lack willpower. You just need to want it more. So you go looking for more discipline, and when that runs dry, you blame yourself all over again. But watch what happens when we go looking for the force behind this one. The force pushing your follow-through down. There isn't one. There's no force under follow-through. And that might be the single most important thing I say in this entire video. Follow-through doesn't have its own root because follow-through is the output of the other four. It's the scoreboard, not the game. So when you couldn't put the phone down, it wasn't weak willpower. It was awareness that couldn't see what the scrolling was actually for. It was emotional clarity that couldn't name what you were dodging. It was an inherited story quietly insisting you're just not a disciplined person. It was scarcity whispering you earn one more hour of numbing out. Four capacities all running a little low at once, and follow through just reported the score. It was never a discipline problem. It was a resolution problem wearing a discipline problem's clothes. And you cannot fix a resolution problem with more willpower. You've been trying that for years. You fix it by raising the resolution on the four things that's sitting underneath it. Follow through takes care of itself when the other four comes into focus. Okay, remember what I promised you back at the start? Five capacities, four forces, and then one more thing sitting underneath all five. The reason that on your worst days it doesn't just go blurry in one spot, the whole screen drops at once. I need to show you that thing now because until you can see it, you're just gonna keep blaming the wrong stuff. You'll have a day where you had no awareness, no patience, no follow through, and you are a mess across the board. And you'll pick one of those and go after it, and you'll lose because none of them was the real problem that day. There's one thing running underneath all five, and when that goes, they all go together at the same time. And it's got nothing to do with any single one of them being weak. So, what is it? It's your nervous system, and specifically whether it's got anything left in the tank. Stephen Porges, who we met back in the Going Quiet episode, and again when we talked about crying, spent his career on this. Your nervous system is always running a scan underneath everything you do. Am I safe right now? Or am I not? You don't feel it running, but it is running. And when it decides you're safe, all five of these capacities have room to work. You can think, you can feel safe, you can be patient. When it decides you're not safe, it doesn't politely lower one capacity, it pulls the whole system into survival. And survival doesn't care about your self-awareness or the hard conversation you meant to have. Survival just wants you through the next 5 minutes. Dan Siegel from the very first episode called that safe zone your window of tolerance. Inside the window, you're you. Pushed outside it, you're just reacting. And here's a part that matters. Every window has a size. And a nervous system that's been running on empty for days, that window shrinks down to almost nothing. I'm gonna give this thing a name so we can talk about it. Nervous system debt. Same as any debt. You can borrow against yourself for a while and feel totally fine right up until the bill comes due. And it doesn't stand as one of these five. It stands beside them, underneath them, because when the debt gets high enough, it reaches up and drops the resolution on the all five screens at once. Let me tell you about the night I learned this the hard way. I'm the head AT for a team, and a few years ago, we had 2 back-to-back away games on the other side of the country. And it was good kind of exhausting. All day, every day, I was on for those guys. I was calm, steady, present. Whatever anyone needed, I had it. We fly home overnight, land around 1 in the morning, get to our home rink, unload all the gear. That's another hour and a half, right? So I finally got home at around 4:35 a.m. in the morning. And I've got to be up for work at 7. So I've got maybe a 2-hour window to sleep before I turn around and do it all over again. It's been 4 days and I had nothing left. And here's the thing I didn't know about myself yet. I wasn't just tired. I was in debt. Deep. So I walk in and somebody who loved me had stayed up. She set an alarm and then made this warm little comfort food and timed it so that it'd be at the perfect temperature the second I got home. Because that was how she loved people. She did things for me. And it was one of the kindest things anyone's ever done for me. And I could not receive it. I said, hey, thank you, truly. But if I eat right now, my body's gonna want to digest all the food and I'll lose the little bit of sleep I've got. Let me just heat it up when I wake up. Which was reasonable on paper, but watch what my mouth actually did with it. It got this whiny, slightly complaining edge to it, like being handed something beautiful was a burden. And her face just fell. She started to cry, went into the room, and closed the door. The whole thing took under a minute. I hadn't seen her in 4 days. I missed her, and I turned a warm welcome into her crying alone behind the door in under 60 seconds. Now, here's what I want you to catch, because this is the whole point. In that 1 minute, watch how many of the five dropped at once. Awareness, gone. I could not see what was actually happening in me. I thought this was about a meal and a schedule. Emotional clarity, gone. If you stopped me and asked what I was feeling, I would have said, I'm tired. That's it, tired. I had no access to the truth sitting underneath it. Identity, gone. I'm not a person who whines at someone for being kind to me. That's genuinely not who I am. But that's exactly who was standing in that kitchen. And relational, yeah, well, that one's obvious. The coldest version of me went straight to one of the only people I'd have sworn I'd do anything for. Right? So 4 capacities down together in 60 seconds. And if you ask me right then which one to fix, I'd have no idea because it wasn't any of them. It was the debt. And I can still tell you exactly what that debt felt like in my body. It wasn't loud. There was this heaviness sitting on my chest and a sigh that kept trying to come up and out and just never actually made it out. And the strangest part, that kitchen opened right up into the living room area. It's big open space, just the two of us in it. And my body swore the walls were closing in, like I was being squeezed in a room with nothing close enough to squeeze me. That's what an empty tank feels like from the inside. The room's completely fine, and your body is screaming that it isn't. Now, if you've ever done something like that, I need you to hear this next part carefully because it's the whole dignity of this thing. That version of me in the kitchen, he wasn't a bad guy who was secretly cruel, and he wasn't weak. He was a guy whose battery had been sitting at 2% for 4 days, whose body had quietly decided it was under threat, and whose window has shrunk down to the size of a keyhole. There was no room left inside to be the person I actually am. Porges would tell you my nervous system did exactly what it was built to do. It basically protected me. It just protected me from a warm plate of food and someone who loved me. Because at 2%, it couldn't tell the difference between that and a real threat. A tank that empty reads everything as danger, even kindness, especially the kind of kindness that asks you to open up and receive it. When opening up is the one thing you've got nothing left for, right? That's not a character flaw. That's a battery, and batteries can be charged. So here's where I've got to turn this back on you. And it's a little uncomfortable, so stay with me. By now, you've probably already picked one. Somewhere in the back of your head, watching all this, you landed on one of the 5 and went, oh, yep, that one. That's me. That's the one I gotta work on. I want you to notice that instinct because there's a trap sitting right inside it. You see, the one you picked, the one you can see clearly enough to name, that's probably not the one doing the most damage. Think about it. To point at a capacity and go, yeah, my awareness is low. Well, you need enough awareness to see that it's low. To say my emotional clarity is the problem, you need enough clarity to spot the gap in the first place. The stuff you can name is by definition the stuff you've already got some resolution on. You can see it because it's already partway in focus. The one actually running the show is the one you cannot see. The one sitting at 240p so completely that you don't even know there's a sharper picture to compare it against. It doesn't feel like a weak spot. It feels like reality. It feels like just how things are, how you are. That night in the kitchen, if you'd asked me, I'd have told you my problem was that I was tired and I don't like repeating myself. I would have pointed right at the wrong thing, confidently. The real one, the debt, the thing actually running the whole collapse, was completely invisible to me because a tank that empty can't see that it's empty. That's the first thing to go. The capacity doing the most damage in your life is the one you'd never pick because you can't see the thing you can't see. So, where does that leave you? You've got five capacities, four forces, and a tank sitting underneath the whole thing. And by now, a part of you might be going, okay, great. So I've got five things to fix and a nervous system to rebuild. That sounds like the rest of my life. Now, here's where most people in my shoes tell you to just be patient with yourself, give it time, be kind to yourself along the way. And that's true. It's also completely useless because nobody ever tells you what to do with the time. So I'm not going to leave you there. Here's the real thing. Resolution doesn't come up like a light switch. Nobody goes from 240p to 4K overnight. And if you're waiting for the day it all suddenly clicks, you're going to quit before it ever comes. It comes up like a dimmer, slow, a little at a time, and a little is enough. Let me show you what a little looks like. Same night, same kitchen. After she closed that door, I sat down on the couch. And my first instinct was to do what most of us do, turn on myself. What is wrong with you? She does one kind thing and you make her cry. Some husband, some boyfriend you are. And Kristen Neff has spent her whole career showing why that move backfires. Beating yourself up doesn't raise your resolution. It drains the tank even further. It's just one more withdrawal on an account that's already overdrawn. Self-compassion isn't going soft on yourself. It's the thing that actually leaves you enough in the tank to do better. So, I didn't spiral. I just did the one small thing that was in front of me. I got up and I made her breakfast ready for the morning. Everything's set up so that she just needed to microwave it and warm it up. And then I wrote a little note and I passed it underneath the door to her room. I want you to notice how small that is. I didn't fix the relationship at 5 in the morning. I didn't become a new man. I was still running on no sleep, but that was the dimmer moving. Just a hair, but it moved. And if you remember the doctor's warning episode, James Prochaska found that change moves in stages, and you're never at zero. Sitting on that couch, even thinking, I don't want to be that guy who does that. That's already a stage. The note under the door was the next one. You're always further along than the voice in your head gives you credit for. And here's what happens when you keep taking the little things in front of you. Not perfectly, not every time. Sometimes you're gonna blow it. You'll have another 4 days empty night where you snap at the exact person you swore you'd protect. That's just a low tank day. It means charge the tank, not that the whole thing's broken. But week by week, the picture sharpens. You start catching the whiny edge in your voice while it's happening instead of on the couch 3 hours later. You start feeling the walls closing in and going, oh, that's the tank, that's not her. And one day you notice you handle the moment at 1080p. They used to run at 240p. You didn't even have to try. That's the whole path. Not a switch you flip, a dimmer you bring up, a little at a time. So here's what I want you to do with all of this. And notice, I didn't say go fix all 5 by Friday. I said one small thing. But you can't take the one small thing until you know which part of your picture is already sharp and which part's been sitting at 240p your whole life without you knowing it. So before you do anything else, go find out. There's a free test over at beautifulpivot.com, the resolution test. And I mean free. Seeing yourself clearly shouldn't cost you a thing. It takes a few minutes and it shows you out of the 5 where you're already running clear and which one's been quietly running the show from the blur. That's the one to start with. And one more thing, maybe the most important one. If any part of this made you think of somebody who's been running hard, giving everybody their best all day, and coming home empty, send them this. Or better, watch it with them. Because some of this is a whole lot easier to see in someone you love before you can ever see it in yourself. And that's not a weakness. Remember, we're strangers to ourselves. Sometimes the people who love us are holding the clearer picture. I'll be down in the comments. Tell me which of the five hit you the hardest. I read them all. In closing, I want to leave you back where we started. Me in my early 30s, watching my friends step outside a fence I didn't even know I was standing behind. I spent a long time on my side of that fence, thinking that was just the whole world, that was as good as the picture ever got. Well, it wasn't. It was just low resolution. And nobody had ever shown me there was a higher one. Well, now somebody has. You know the fence is there now. You know there's a whole life on the other side of it, in a higher definition than you've ever seen it in. And you don't have to climb the whole thing today. You just have to bring the picture up a little at a time. You're not broken. You never were. You are just at low resolution. We're beloved. God bless you, and I'll see you in the next one.